Thank you very much for attending today's program, Genealogy for Beginners. My name is Laura Christensen. I'm the library director, and I'm pleased to see you here for this wonderful program that we haven't offered in a while. It's a great way to get started if you haven't, and hopefully even if you have been doing genealogy for a while, you'll learn some things that are new. So I'm really excited that today's class is being presented by Anna Carneal Davis, who is our library genealogy specialist here at the library. Anna has been doing genealogy for some time.
Yes.
It's very exciting for her to be on this side of the camera because if you attend any of our other workshops, you probably know she is usually the moderator who sits and answers questions. Anna can tell you a little bit about the genealogy training that she has been pursuing, but we're very pleased to have her share her knowledge with you. Just a couple of logistical things. The restrooms are directly across the hall from this room, and there are water fountains to your left if you leave this room. There are people attending virtually. Hello. So this program is also being recorded, so please know that if you say things, it'll be recorded and we will post it on YouTube. However, the audience here, nor virtually, will be on the recording, like your questions will be read out, things like that. But we will not pan the camera across the audience unless you want us to. I also apologize to some of you when you came in, noticed that we have ladders and things going on in the library. There's a little bit of HVAC work that is ongoing, and we are motivated as it gets warmer for them to finish it. So if there are noises or things like that, please know that it's entirely beyond our control, even though we tried. But hopefully they are wrapping up and it won't disrupt from the class. Despite the work, I hope that after the class, if you have time, you'll take a chance to visit us upstairs and see what's going on in the library. And also we have programs coming up and there's information in the back, but I don't want to take up Anna's time. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Right. All right, thanks everybody. So like Laura said, my name is Anna Carneal Davis, and I have 2 degrees in history. I have a master's in history, and when I started this position 2 years ago, I really started to dive into the subset of genealogical research, which is a subset of history. And if you know anything about it, have looked at it at all, you know that professional genealogists are very clinical with their research. They're like detectives. They're trying to find the answer. And so they're very Sherlock Holmes and very structured with their research. So even as a master's student or a master's recipient of history, I still learned a lot. And I'm also a type B researcher, which means I can be kind of all over the place. So these skills, I mean, yeah, so I feel like people can understand. So these skills really help you to set you up for the best success possible. So even if you're not new to genealogy, this is a great refresher course to kind of keep you on track. And like Laura said, you might learn something new. So all right, so the agenda for today, I'm going to start with, if you've read anything about genealogy, you kind of have a broad range of guidelines on where to start. So we'll go over that. I'll also touch on some popular records and resources to help you with your genealogical research. And this isn't going to be a how to database. This is more of like how to research and how to set up your research for success. So we will have a class later this year on family search and ancestry, but this one's more about genealogical research. So we're going to practice with a case study with some of my own family research that happens to be based in Loudoun County. So we'll go through that, and I will expect some audience participation as we go through that practice. I'll do some tips for organization and how to organize your research, and then we'll talk about a little final takeaways. All right, so when you get started with yourself. Okay, so you can see baby Anna there. This is my senior portrait that's actually upstairs in the library. So we have the yearbooks here. So I decided to take a picture of that. But the reason why you want to start with yourself is because, one, you're going to give other family historians in your family a favor by getting all the materials on yourself. And 99% of the time, you are the one that knows the most about you. So it's a really a solid foundation starting point to gather as many resources as you can about yourself, your parents, your siblings, to really give you a good launching point to move up in your family tree. Because if you start up too high, you know, in the 1800s or earlier, you might hit the wrong John Smith. There's a lot of people with the same name, or cousins with the same name, or a junior or senior. So you really want to start at the beginning with yourself and work up, because that gives you the best scaffolding to move forward. So what kind of materials? Also, you can kind of see that records that you find for yourself can also be found for your ancestors. So what kind of resources or like documents, paper trail, have you left behind? Anyone?
Census documents.
Census documents. What else would you have? Birth certificate. Military service, right? So if you start thinking about the paper trail that you've left behind, that can give you ideas about what your ancestors might have left behind as well. All right, so again, I'm going to be trying to give you resources that are free and accessible to everyone. So we have these two charts that I have in the handout from the National Genealogy Society, the 4-generation pedigree chart, which is basically the parent-child relationship and so on and so forth. So it's a direct ancestry, that's a pedigree chart, and then a family group sheet, which then you can build out the family, the father, mother, and then children. So again, you're gonna try to record what you can remember. So names, full names if possible, with the middle name, the relationships. So if you have any marriages and siblings, something like that, the date, the full date as much as you can. So if you can get the day and the month and the year, that's kind of gold standard. But if you only know the year, that's also just a great starting point. Marriage and then death dates. So again, you try to be as detailed as possible when you're starting out. Now, I put this family group sheet up here, the American Ancestors, which is a New England Historical Genealogical Society. They have this on their website, and it's a PDF fillable document. This form is really helpful because it's a visual cue to know, okay, I have all this information about the mother-father relationship and then the children, and you can have multiple pages of children depending, but it also is a good visual cue to see what you're missing. So you can keep this with your research, with the family that you're researching on top, with all of your records behind. And we'll talk about organization a little bit later, but this sheet in particular is very, very useful. All right, so I am a millennial and I like to have things digitally. So I can't not talk about digital family trees. So the first two, the family tree for Mac or PC, those are software. So you have Roots Magic or Family Tree Maker. So it's something that you can buy and download onto your computer. It makes it easy to organize your research, and they build out the family tree. If you fill in the information, they'll build it for you. So it's really user-friendly. I will say though, with software like this, it can age out. So your computer can get newer, but your software is still old. So sometimes the compatibility can be an issue. So just keep that in mind if you go ahead and go with a software family tree. Then there's also your traditional family trees online. So I'm not talking, when I just have the dollar signs, I'm not talking about the records. As we all know, Ancestry has paywalls, but for their family tree, they don't. You can put all of your family tree information into Ancestry. They won't block you with a paywall, but they will try and entice you with their records and be like, oh, if you pay the hints, yeah, like please pay money. MyHeritage does have a paywall, so it will stop at a certain extent with your family tree, so you can't really fill it out as much. And then all the way at the bottom, I do have Family Search. Family Search is with the Church of the Latter-day Saints. So it is a religious organization. And so for their religion, they really want to track the family, the ancestors for posthumous baptism. So just know that it is a free resource, but it is tied to a religious organization. And in that case, their family tree is shared with everybody. So you don't get your own personal family tree. It's with everybody's research in there. So it's not really your own.
Is Ancestry part of Family Search?
No, Ancestry is a part separate from Family Search. Family Search is a religious organization. Ancestry is a commercial organization. So a lot of their record sets are similar, but it's different. So Ancestry has paywalls, Family Search doesn't, but you do have to pull in your personal information. So they do keep track of that. So with Family Search, I really like it. I don't mind sharing my information, but if you're concerned about that, definitely read their privacy information on their website. Okay, so obviously you don't know everything. So I always try to pull in your family members when you can. If you can, you start with your oldest family member. So it could be a parent, grandparent, eldest cousin, aunt, uncle, you know, because they'll have different perspectives. And again, on your handout with American Ancestors, they do have interview questions that you can start out with to kind of get that. And you know, your elder family members really do enjoy sitting down and talking about these things. That's what I've noticed in my own personal experience. But if you're having trouble trying to get your family members to talk, sometimes some visual cues will be helpful. So for this presentation, I went around my parents' house starting to take pictures of family heirlooms. My grandmother happened to be there at the house and she just opened up and started talking about it. So you can really get good information just by sitting down and looking at your family treasures with family members. And always, if you're going to record, always ask permission to record your family members. Okay, so some ideas: photo albums, scrapbooks, family Bibles, personal documents that we talked about before, plastic bins, bags, or shoe boxes full of family memorabilia, heirlooms with oral histories attached. So, you know, we love these stories. There's some really good family lore sometimes, but take it sometimes with a grain of salt. You always want to verify because, you know, in my family, I have there's a lore that a family ancestor was shot by a Mosby Ranger in the Civil War here in Loudoun County. I've not been able to verify that. So that might be, you know, not exactly true. So just always double check behind someone's family lore. Yeah, so you might be wondering what a couple of these things are. I do have a plank that's from the USS Newport News. My grandfather was on the inaugural sailing of that battleship, so they gave him the plank of the deck of the ship. And then we have a school bell that my great grandmother had. She was a teacher at a schoolhouse in Alexandria, mortar and pestle. And then in the bottom corner here are some letters that you can see are just covered in plastic. When I first got them, I inherited them from my grandfather when he passed away. And so if you can see a little bit, it says William H. Polton, Loudoun County. So what I did was I took them out of the plastic. Because I have an archival background, I made sure to get them in a nice preservation box. I transcribed them, so I wrote out the letters, and I got a lot of good information from that. Now, this is golden standard. You know, this does not happen for everybody, but, you know, sometimes your parents just have random things laying around, and you never know what kind of stories you might get. So I bring up William Polton because he will be part of our case study later on today. All right, any questions before we move on? Okay, so we're going to dive into some of the records that are a great starting point for genealogical research, and then also look at resources on where you find those records. All right, so we heard initially census records, right? So there's an enumeration here in the United States every 10 years, starting in 1790. And it's a great starting document to kind of place your ancestor in a location with their family grouping. So all you really need sometimes is just a name and a location, and you might be able to track them down. Sometimes we really like to have more information, but it's always a good starting point. So you see here, I have the 1860 census from Leesburg, Virginia, and I've highlighted our guy, William H. Poulton. Poulton is spelled Poulton, and here in the census, it's spelled Polton. So a numerator is just listening to the person who's giving the information. So spelling changes often happen. You're not always getting the most accurate information from a census record, so always be aware of that. Now, let's see, where are you? I do have the National Archives website, which holds the census records, has a great resource, which I have in your handout as well, that gives information about population census records. The newest record is the 1950 census that was released in 2022. The next one will be in 2032 with the 1960 census. But what's really good about this resource is that if we look at, let's see, the 1930 census facts, you can see it gives you really good frequently asked questions. It also can tell you what was listed on the census. So you can tell, and I don't know if it's with the 1930, but it might be with an older one, I think 1900. But it will also give you like when a person was married or immigration information. So certain census has different information than others. So you can really, this is a very quick information tool that if you're interested in a particular year, you can gather all of that information in a quick way. You can also see that they have a Learn About Census Records page here. What can the census tell me? Again, the FAQs. And then they also have, I think it's somewhere over here. Yeah, Introduction to Census Records video. So someone who is going to lay it out for you from the National Archives and give you additional information. So this is a great, great resource to kind of dive further into census records. All right, where did my PowerPoint go? Okay. Next up, we have vital records. Vital records is just a blanket term for birth, death, marriage, and divorce. So this is a broad range of records. You can have a birth certificate, death certificate, marriage certificate after a certain year point. In the 1800s, early 1800s, you didn't really have state or locality ordained records. It depended on where you were searching. So if we don't have a birth certificate, or actually, let's start with a death certificate. If we don't have a death certificate, we can also find an obituary, or we can find a tombstone. Right here, we have William H. Poulton again, who was born in October 19th, 1816 and died in 1898. So there's multiple ways to get the information that you're looking for. Okay, now, sometimes it can be confusing. You're like, I can't find a marriage certificate anywhere. Why is that? You can go to the CDC website. That's here. And what they have is this handy tool. I'm going to go to Virginia. And you can see where you can write for a vital certificate. If you're related to the person and it's more modern, they'll give it to you. But then also you can see under the remarks section, so right here, state office has records from January 1853 to December 1896, and since June 14th, 1912. So if your ancestor is in that age range, you might be able to get a birth certificate or record. But if it's prior to 1853, you might have to look at other resources out there, like church records, baptismal records, temple records, anything like that, or diaries, letters. There's other ways to get birth information rather than just a birth certificate. So I find this website really handy. Okay. Now, like I was saying, we're detectives, right? So we're going to be analyzing these records closely because the information we're getting from it might sometimes not be the most accurate. If we remember with the census record, we have an enumerator who's not the primary informant. So you're not going to get the primary. So William Poulton wasn't writing it down himself. So it's secondhand information. So we all know about primary and secondary sources, right? So primary sources like Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty and Give Me Death. If you want to know about that period in history, you want to look at that primary source information. And a secondary source is an author writing about the Revolutionary period or Patrick Henry from the modern era. So there's different sources and information. So you have an original record. So it's like our census record that is an original record from the time period. A derivative record is a transcription or abstract or index. So like how I transcribed my family's letters, that is a derivative record of the original letters. Okay, so if we go back to the census, so we know that this is the original record. I kind of gave the answer away, but what kind of informant is this? Is it primary or secondary? Primary, yes. And then is it going to be, so it's an original record of primary, and then is it a derivative source? No, okay. And then is it, so if we are looking at the evidence and we see that we have William Poulton's age, it says he's 45. So we can infer that he was born in 1860. But is that a direct evidence that he was born in 1816? No, it's indirect. So it's not the explicit information of that record. So I do have this analysis sheet on the page on the handout. So this is really handy because again, the information is not all the same, right? So you really need to put your Sherlock Holmes hat on and really decide whether or not this is enough information to give you the closest answer to your question. Okay. All right, so the repositories. So the census records, the birth, marriage, and death records that are certificates, they're going to be coming from a federal, state, and local government. You have court records, directories, immigration, land records, military records, probate. So you're going to find those in a government repository. But if you are like, I don't want to go through XYZ certificates, and I don't want to pay for Ancestry. So you can go to a local genealogy library or historical society within the locality that you find, and you'll be surprised at how many local historians will come through and do all the work for you and put it in a nice little index. So all you have to do is flip through, find your information, and then you can go back to the courthouse and ask for the original record. So sometimes it's skipping that middleman and getting that information directly. But you also have cemetery records, church records. Again, if you have a good society that's gathering all this information and putting it in a centralized location, you can really mine a lot of good information. And I'm a little biased because we're here in a genealogical library. But it is a really nice resource to think about. But you're going like, okay, well, actually, let me back up a little bit. So I will talk about some online resources, right? You do have your subscription websites. So this is, again, so if you're looking for records, this is where you hit the paywall. So you have ancestry.com, that then gives you Ancestry DNA, Fold3, which is a military website. So if you're looking for military records, and then there's newspapers.com. Find My Pass is a UK-centric subscription website, and then MyHeritage is also US and UK based, and they do have some other countries in there as well. Cindy's List is a website that kind of gives you all the genealogical tools that you could ever want. I do recommend you just go through and click through it. It is a genealogist whose life's work has been, Cindy, who's been to gather resources, and it's a good jumping off point for online research. Chronicling America is with the Library of Congress. That is a digital newspaper website. So you can keyword search for different things. Again, family search with the Church of the Latter-day Saints. You can do a lot of research before here at Family Search before you even need to go anywhere else. So I do recommend it as a database. Find a Grave, Internet Archive is like a book source. So you can find if it's past the copyright time, you can find it on Internet Archive. There's National Archives, like we saw, and then Virginia Chronicle is a Virginia-based newspaper website with the Library of Virginia. So if you're doing Virginia research, this website's really, really helpful. Okay, I just threw a lot of information at you. And you're like, Anna, that is so much information. I'm not going to remember any of that. I don't even know where to start. Well, luckily, Family Search thought of that, and you do not need to have a account to access their research wiki. So this wiki basically gathers all of that information that you need about a specific locality. So you can find the repository, you can find information about the records that are there, what records might have been lost in your particular area, and you can just click on these countries and drill it down to your specific locality. And we will use this in our case study later on. So I will come back to it. All right, guidelines for when you are doing your research. Take your time. Again, like I said, I'm a type B researcher, and sometimes I just like to click all the things and just try and find out as much information as possible. And I get so far along and then I stop and I'm like, wait a minute, where did I get that source? Where did I get that information? And then I have to do it all over again. It's not efficient. So really just take your time, take notes, and we'll talk about a research log here in a moment. Double check your information. Again, you're Sherlock Holmes, you're really searching for that information. So it's always good to be critically thinking about what sources you're looking at before you move on. Don't take it at face value. There's always other records out there. Genealogists call it reasonably exhausted research. So they will have a question and they will look at it at different angles before they're quote unquote satisfied with the answer that they find. And then finally, be wary of public trees. You don't know what the researcher did. They could be like me and just type B and click all the buttons, and you might get a wrong branch to your family tree. So you might be researching down the wrong rabbit hole. So I wouldn't say not use public trees, just verify what information is coming from there. It can be a great starting point, just always back up what they are researching, okay? All right, we're gonna practice now. Yay. Okay, so I have my family group sheet and I'm gonna use my ancestors, William Henry Poulton. So again, I'm putting as much information as I can about this person on the family group sheet. So I have a middle name. I have Anna B. Jared as his spouse. I don't know her full middle name, so I just put B as the initial. And then I've seen her last name, so we put her maiden name, not her married name. I see her last name written in multiple ways. So I have Jared and then Jarrett in parentheses, because you never know, you might find it in different spelling variations. I have their parents' names, I have their death dates, right? But I have one large glaring blank right there in the middle under Henry Poulton or William Henry Poulton, is that I don't know where he was married. Okay, so I'm like, all right, well, that's a good place for me to start my research, back up, okay? I might even go with Anzie, who's the mother's maiden name. I don't know her maiden name. That's another research point I can jot off of, but that's more complicated. So we're not gonna do that one right now. It's gonna hold off. Because I don't even know, so we're not gonna do that one. But when we plan out our research, okay, this is where you really want to be as detailed as possible. So I have the subject information. So William H. Poulton, born 1816, Loudoun County, Virginia, death in 1898, married to Anna B. Jared, parentheses Jarrett, date unknown. And then I have the children's information as well that I've gotten from other research. So I know that William F. Poulton, so this is why it's good to have middle names, right? Because he's not a junior, he's a William Franklin Poulton, so that's different. Born in 1842, Reed B. Poulton, born in 1844, and then Susan A. Poulton, born in 1846. Okay, so we have all this question, and then these information. So I really encourage you to write out your questions. So you're doing a quote unquote science experiment, right? So what is my question? When did William H. Poulton, born October 19th, 1816 in Loudoun County, Virginia, marry Anna B. Jarrett? And I could even add her birth date too to that. So we have this question, it's very specific. You know, it's exactly about William H. Poulton, who was born in 1816 in Loudoun County. It's not another William Poulton, right? This is, again, I'm biased because I'm a librarian and we get people asking us questions all the time. And they're like, find me all this information about William Poulton, who lived in Loudoun County. But which William Poulton? Which one? I don't know. So in live, we're always happy to help drill that down with you. But this type of way of planning out your research sets you up for success, okay? It helps you get to the question or the answer in the most efficient way possible. All right, so with all of this information, what do you think our hypothesis is? What do you think, when do you think, around what time were they married? With all of that information.
Yeah, 20 years to their birthday or something.
Yeah, around 20 years to the birthday. Also, look at their children's birth dates.
Right.
So he was born in 42, and it's possible that they got married after a child. It's not impossible, right? But this is a hypothesis, right? So when do we think, approximately what time do we think that they got married? 1840. So around there, late 30s, early 40s. Okay. Where do you think they might have gotten married? Loudoun County. Okay. So that is our hypothesis. And it's okay if it changes with new information. We find out like, oh, wait, they lived in Clark County for a time. Then you start looking in Clark County. But for right now, we're going to start with Loudoun County. Okay. Oops. So if we go to, not that. Ooh. If we go to our family search research with wiki, I'm gonna hide the floating. All right, so we come to this homepage, right? We know we want to look at North America. We go all the way down to the United States. Then we go all the way down again to Virginia. And then we find a wiki page all about Virginia, United States genealogy. But we don't really need all of this information for just Virginia. I know that I want to search for records in Loudoun County. So I go ahead and see they have this whole state with all the county breakups. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Loudoun County. Okay, so now I come to Loudoun County, Virginia genealogy wiki page. This is super helpful. You can see it has, and the contents, it has so many, all these resources, right? It just is chock full of information. But we are going to look at the county information first. Okay, so we know the county was established in 1756 or 1757, depending. You have the courthouse information. You have Loudoun County, Virginia record dates. So we know from the CDC that state information starts in 1853 or 1912, right? But we can see under marriage that the first known records here for marriage are 1793. So we're pretty confident we're going to find the information. Okay, the other thing I'll note is Loudoun County, we're extremely lucky in this county because the people that took the records out during the Civil War, so they were never burned. There was no, not even just from wartime, there was just no freak accident where a courthouse burned down. So we have these surviving records. You can see that we do have some record loss. So we don't have a 1790 census, 1800 census, and then nobody really has the 1890 census because that was burned at the federal level. But overall, we should have good court documentation. That's pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and click the marriage link here. And we're going to see that Family Search kindly gave us all these databases that we can look through at our computer, you know, sitting on our couch. So I'm going to try and focus on the free resources that are accessible to everyone. So we're only going to look at a few databases, but I'm going to look really closely. So I want to look at Family Search because I know that's free. And I see here it says vital records, 1715 to 1901. So that hits in with my year range. So I'm going to try that one. Then there's Virginia County marriage records, 1771 to 1989. We know that there are county records for Loudoun, so that's probably a good place to look as well. And then finally, we're going to look at Virginia marriages, 1785 to 1940. So those three databases there are within our year range. They're in the same state or even looking like it might be hopeful with county marriage records, okay? So when we go to the database, we're actually going to start with this one, Virginia Vital Records. I always like to look at the collection description underneath. So this collection contains records of birth, marriage, and death in the state of Virginia from 1715 to 1901. More records will be added if available. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put in William H. Polton. I'm going to put in his county and then his birth year. I'm going to hit search. All right. What do we see? All right, Paul, Polly, Polson, and then none of the marriage records are in our year range, okay? And I can even, because this is vital records, I can even drill it down farther with hitting the marriage button here and applying. Okay, and now we're just seeing marriage records. Again, Chesterfield, Culpeper, and nothing, I mean, this one is in our year range, so we can click on it and see. But, you know, Emma G or Emma G, you know, so these are not the right names, right? So we know that this is not our record, okay? Now, I'm okay with looking at name variations because you never know, like with the census records, things can be written or transcribed wrong. But I'm pretty confident that we're not going to find William Polton here in this database entry. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next one. So Virginia marriages 1785 to 1940. We see that it's marriage records from the state of Virginia and that they are on microfilm at the Family History Library. So there's nothing really interesting in that except that we know it's from the state of Virginia. So I'm going to try again. Fulton, Loudoun County. Oops. Okay. Search. Okay, so this is distinctly marriage records. And look, we get the first line there. Father, William H. Polton. Spouse, Annie B. Polton. So, you know, that seems promising. So if we go in, we see that the record's actually for their son, William F. Polton. All right. So we have all this information. He married Sarah Elgin in 1870. Okay, so not the record that we are looking for, but this is good to note, you know, if you're like, oh, wait, I needed to know about William's marriage. So you can note this in your research log, which we'll come to in a moment. Okay, so we struck out.
Click on his mother.
Same thing, right? Now, again, you can click through other family trees, but for this particular exercise, we're just going to ignore that for right now, okay? We want to see if we can find an original record, right? So we don't see that here. So we're going to try the last database, County marriage records. Okay, so this is probably the most hopeful, right? But if we read the database description, we see that this collection includes the following counties, and Loudoun is not listed. So that's why it's really important to read the database information, because even though the title looks hopeful, it just might mean that the records weren't submitted to that particular database. Okay, so we're gonna be sad and it's not there. Okay. But do we give up? No, never. Yeah, exactly. Never give up. So let me come back. Okay. Even though we struck out, put that down in a research log. So this is very simple. This is an Excel spreadsheet that I made that I just put my notes into. You have the repository. So we looked at family search and then the databases that's under family search. The purpose of that search. So I do have the question there, but you can see that I'm really trying to find the record of marriage for them both, and then the citation, and then the findings. So even if it's a quote unquote negative finding, we didn't find anything, no evidence, you want to put that in there. What I probably would have done was in the one with where we found the son's record, I probably would have made a note about that as well, and that you can find it in the other information elsewhere. But then here, I make sure to state that there's no record in their the database, but that doesn't mean I can't look back again another time, because that doesn't mean their staff hasn't been uploading information. So it's always good to circle back. But like I said, you know, if you're sitting with a glass of wine, clicking through all the things, you might forget that you looked at these databases. You're not even with a glass of wine. You can just step away from your, you can step away from your research and leave it for 6 months, and then you totally forget what you looked at. So having a research log, no matter how simple it is, really helps you keep track of what you already looked at, okay? But again, oops, spoiler alert. But we're not done, okay? So if we go back to family search, again, I'm showing off my bias here. You can go to the county courthouse. Now, Loudoun County is fantastically privileged. We have a record room. We have a place at the county courthouse that specifically works with county records. We have everything intact. So, you know, if I am working with Loudoun County research, I probably would just go ahead and go to the county courthouse. But we're going to pretend that we're not exactly sure if we have a office set. You can always research the county in Google and see whether or not if they have a dedicated office. But if they don't, the next best place to go is if you're going to go down here, see research facilities, and we're going to hit libraries. And guess where we're going? Thomas Balch Library. Yeah, I'm totally biased. So I know here that Thomas Balch Library, it's a history and genealogy library. You can explore their collections and see what kind of records they have. I'm going to just go ahead and jump directly to the Centennial Catalog. Okay, so I'm not giving up because we know that the county has marriage records that early. So there has to be something somewhere, okay? So I click on their catalog, and this catalog, not to plug, the catalog gives all of the books, archives, resources that's in the library all right here, and you can just enter in a keyword search. So I'm going to go ahead and put in marriage and Loudoun and see what pops up. Okay, so we have a few books. Like I said, we have some great dedicated professional genealogists in this area. Pat Duncan is fabulous. And she's done a lot of abstracts and indexes here in the county. So we can see that she's did one for the Telephone, which is a newspaper. It's not our correct age, our year range, right? It's too late. We have another one from the Mirror, which is another newspaper. Too late. But then we come down here and we see Loudoun County, Virginia marriage bonds, 62 to 1850. But I'm actually going to hit the Loudoun County, Virginia marriage records. Wait, it's not the one I want. Where'd it go? I did this, let's see. Here it is, all the way down at the bottom. It was more at the top the last time I did this, I swear. So we have marriages of Loudoun County, Virginia, 1757 to 1853, right? So it's our correct year range. And I can then see the call number, and you're like, Anna, I'm not coming into a library to physically look at the book. There's location, access difficulties. I live in another state. Well, then you can reach out to the reference staff and be like, hey, can you check for William Poulton in this book? I think he was married around 1840. Can you check for me? He married Anna Poulton. And so the librarians will be like, yes, we can totally do that. That will take 5 minutes. We can pick it off the shelf and look through the index to see if we can find William Poulton. Okay, no money required. You just ask nicely. So, come on. All right. So we look into this index, and lo and behold, what do we have down there at the bottom? Poulton, William, and Ann Jared, Joshua Nichols attest ages, BM, 14 June 1841. Shell. Okay, there's a couple things in there that I'm a little confused about. Shell, what does that mean? So I look at the beginning of the book. Mary Alice Wirtz did a nice job of abstracting this information from the courthouse records, and she gives little shorthands and a key to that shorthand. So when I look at the beginning of the book, this Shell means Shelburne Parish, which is a parish in Loudoun. Okay. She doesn't say what BM means, so I'm gonna have a little question about that. And so I'll probably make a note of, oh, what does that mean? All right, do we stop here?
No.
No, why do we not stop here? What kind of record is this? What kind of evidence are we getting? It's a derivative record, it's not original.
Right.
We can see that it says Anne. We know her name is Anna. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So, and Joshua Nichols attests ages and BM. So we still have a question about what type of record is this, okay? So we're going to go back. Now that we know for sure that we have a record here in the county, we can go see, I will stop with my bias here. We will go see what the county courthouse has. All right, so like I said, we're very lucky here in Loudoun. We have this great courthouse record research area. The staff are great over there, and they've indexed a lot of the court records for us. Now, this is very unique. Okay, you don't get this a lot with other county courthouses. It doesn't hurt to check, but I would say that, again, we're very, very, very lucky here in Loudoun. So I would see that we have Basemore, let's see, where is it? Marriage records, okay? Look at that. We have a marriage record, marriage and bond index. Okay, so 1767 to 1815. We have a marriage record index guide. Again, always read the small print. So we have an outline of what we're going to find in this index. Okay, so there's minister returns. So it's names and dates submitted by the ministers who perform the marriage ceremonies. So that is a pretty good record that we would want to have. And then marriage bonds posted by the groom with a surety. So basically saying that, like, oh, I'll pay money if the marriage doesn't go off, or if there's a legal, yeah, it's a surety. So, or if the he has a wife in another state, or she's not age appropriate, you know, if it turns out that she's underage, they will pay a penalty or a fine. So they don't pay it up front, but it is basically saying legally you're bound if this doesn't go off correctly, okay? And then bonds often include information regarding parents or other family members and friends, with a few exceptions prior to 1793. Okay, and so we see that the bonds fall between 93 and 1850. Okay. So that's good information to know. We go back to our,
Maybe that BM means.
yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
right? So it's always good to have a guide, right? So we see that. Then we go into their index, and I'm searching by the groom's surname, and we see that green line there at the bottom. I'll read it out. Marriage records MB. Okay, so a marriage bond, right? June 14th, 1841. Polton William, Jared Anna, and then both ages proved by Joshua Nichols. So the both ages proved by Joshua Nichols now makes more sense. He's also saying, hey, these guys are legal. You can marry them. That's fine. I'll even put up some money for it too, you know? So we know that this is a marriage bond. So great, we have more information. Do we stop here? No. We can, but with marriage bonds, this happened before the ceremony took place. So the date of the bond might not be the date of marriage. So you're not getting the exact date of marriage. So with our friends at the courthouse, I sent them a very nice email and was like, hey, can I see the original record of this bond? And they were very nicely gave me a scanned copy of the marriage bond. So you can see William Polton and Joshua Nichols there at the top. They are the ones that are saying like, oh, we're good for the money. We'll post this bond, saying that, you know, they will pay if need be. And then the condition above the obligation is such that whereas the marriage is shortly intended to be had, so shortly intended to be had, and solemnized between the above bound William Polton and Anna Jared. So you can see why the indexer might have had an issue with reading Anna, because the A at the end kind of gets lost, but it does say Anna Jared of Shelburne Parish. Okay, the information down at the bottom corner, that's Joshua Nichols saying, yes, they are of age, they can get married, and then they sign that bond. So now we know, yes.
Who is Joshua Nichols? Is this
Josh-
a lawyer? Is this a judge?
No, so actually, if you look at the census records and you look at other records, you'll see that Joshua Nichols is actually a neighbor.
Okay.
So he's a friend, he's a witness, yes, yeah. So, yeah, and you can look at other court records to see if he was an official, but as with further research, I now know that Joshua Nichols is a friend, which again would be useful for further research if you're trying to dive in deeper. But for right now, we're just looking at the marriage record, okay? So, awesome, we got an original record. Do we stop here?
No.
No, because we don't know the original date. So with marriage records before 1853, we have a marriage bond. But we don't have a marriage certificate because it's too early. What else would we look for with marriage information?
Church record?
Church records. Census, again, it's indirect. So sometimes you're not getting quite the direct information. What
So
else?
You say there's no marriage certificate?
No marriage certificate because it's too early, right? So church records, is there any other place?
They do like an announcement, like in the class.
Yes, so there's something that's called a marriage notice. So you'll find a marriage notice submitted into the newspaper. Now, this is usually for affluent families. So this is, again, not something you would always find. Church records are always a great next step as well, but I'm not sure what religious affiliation they are in this imaginary world that we're in right now. And so I would need to do more research to find out what their religion is before I look for church records. So for me, the next easiest step is just to double check to see if there's any marriage notices in a newspaper. Okay. So I go to my, my favorite library in the world. And I go back to their catalog. Right? And so what I'm gonna do is put in marriage notices and Loudon. Actually, let's just do marriage notices and see what pops up. Okay, so we got marriage notices from Virginia newspapers. So that's not gonna work. So we're gonna drill it down a little bit farther with Loudon. And we see again, those abstracts we saw with the other catalog entry, but we've already know that that is too late. Again, the mirror is too late. But then we find marriage and death notices from the Genius of Liberty, 1817 to 1843. So that is our correct year range. We get that call number, we email our friends at the Thomas Balch Library and say, hey, can you check out this index for me? I would really appreciate it for William Poulton and Anna Jared. And it's going to be somewhere in June 1841, maybe, or in the summer of 1841. Can you check it out for me? Okay, so we check it out for you. And we find in that index, we have an article that says on June 26, 1841, married Thursday, the 17th instant by Birkby, William Poulton and Anna Jared, both of this county. Okay, so we have this lovely information. So now we know that probably fairly certain, 90% certain that the 17th of June is our day of marriage. Okay, what would make this even better is if we did find that church record, then you're getting as close as possible to the information. But I will take this. This is good. But I'm not going to stop here. Now, the library has microfilm copies of the Genius of Liberty. So I can, if I'm here, I can go up and play with the microfilm machine to find the original article. I can ask our friends at the library to check it for me, or you can use the Virginia Gazette, not Virginia Gazette, the Virginia Chronicle with the Library of Virginia, that website I talked about at the beginning. It's a digital database, and I can put in Poulton in their database, drill it down to my correct locality and my correct year range, and see if I can find the article with that information.
Yeah, what is
Yes.
that? Is it instituted by Birkby? What did that mean?
So actually, let's go ahead.
The Birkby House.
Yes, yeah, but
I'm Episcopalian because it's Shelburne.
yes, so actually,
Episcopal Church.
so no, actually,
it's not.
let's look at the
That's
original.
okay.
Let's hold on, there's more. So here with, remember, we were looking at a index, an abstract, it's a derivative record. Always try to go to the original record, okay? So we see with this original record, it's a high digital copy of the original newspaper. We see on Thursday, the 17th instance by the Reverend Thomas Birkby, Mr. William Poulton to Miss Anna Jared, both of this county, okay? So we do get more information. Thomas Birkby, if you research, was actually a Methodist minister, okay? So as someone who knows Loudoun County, Virginia history, I actually, when I was setting this up, I was like, wow, that's weird. It says Shelburne Parish, which you accurately said is the Episcopal or the Anglican Church parish. So I could automatically say, oh, they're Episcopalians and be done with it. But if I research Thomas Birkby, I know he's Methodist. So I went ahead and emailed, I looked in the library upstairs, researched Shelburne Parish to see why that would be, right? I didn't really find anything. So I emailed my pal, Eric Larson at the courthouse. He's the historic records manager. I was like, hey, why was it saying Shelburne Parish, even though it's a Methodist minister? He's like, I'm not too sure, but you see this a lot in the marriage bonds prior to the Civil War. And so I think it's just a district allocation. It's a holdover from when it was the Anglican Church having the county. So it's always good to double check. But now that I know Thomas Birkby is a Methodist preacher, then I'm gonna jump off with that and see if I can find marriage record, an original marriage record from Thomas Berkby. Okay, so we have all of that information, but with this newspaper record, we know pretty closely that the 17th is probably their marriage date. Okay. Now I put all of that into my research log. I didn't forget it. So again, the collection is the repository. So Thomas Balch Library, or the Loudoun County Clerk of the Circuit Court, or Virginia Chronicle, the newspaper digital archive there at the bottom. Again, my purpose of search, detailed citation. I even threw in the call number there. So if I needed to come back to the library, I knew exactly where to find it again. And then I also put in as much information as possible. So I'm typing out the transcription. You can see I was like Shell equals Shelburne Parish. Spelling is close enough that I'm like, oh yeah, these are the same people. I don't know why Jared's underlined, not sure. At the time I was like, I don't know what BN means, but now we know, right? So, and then I also put derivative record, right? The index entry is a derivative record. And then with the original copy, you'll see in bold there, it says insert desktop file location here. So again, I keep all of my information on my computer. So if I want to be able to access that digital file again, I can find the desktop location on my file. If you keep paper records, you could be like, it's listed under surname Holton. You can find that original record there, or the copy of the original record. Okay. So this, again, this log is not to deter you or keep you, it actually helps you in the long run to have more efficient research. But also, it really, really is important to cite your sources. I cannot tell you how many times I've had people come in here who's like, oh, my mother did research 20 years ago and cited a marriage record that was here at Thomas Balch Library. But I don't know what marriage record, where, in a book, in the archives, in an oral history, you know. So sometimes it's really like, if you want to come back to your research, one, but then two, if you have someone else looking at your research, it's really helpful to be as detailed as possible about where you're getting that information so you can pick it up again. So with my citations here, just general things to remember: who produced it. So if it's a census record, we know that the US Federal Census Bureau produced it. Or if it's a letter, who the author is, or the book, who the author is, and the publisher. What is the document and what is it about? So the title, or that it's a correspondence between William Poulton and Anna Jarrett. When was it produced? So what time, the date, and where is it located? Now, again, I'm a type B researcher. I have 2 degrees in history, and citations are the bane of my existence. I do not like them. I can never remember the standard or the format. It just will not stay in my brain. So I do have some citation builders that you can do online, that you can plug in the information. Professional genealogists are probably clutching their pearls right now and being like, oh my gosh, Anna, I can't believe you're recommending this. So the only caveat I would have with that is that sometimes you're not going to get the right record, the right format for your right record. So you might not be missing important information because you're uploading it into a wrong citation format. So just be aware of that. And that's why I have evidence explained, which is on your handout. This is the handbook for genealogy in the sense of citations and evidence. That's where we had that evidence worksheet came from. So Elizabeth Schoen Mills, she's awesome. And so you can really drill down with this book what specific record you have and how to cite it. So you get all the pertinent information from that record. And my thing is always, more information is better. You know, you don't need to be skimpy with your citations, but put as much information as you can about where you found it. Yes.
Are we done with William Poulton and Anna Jarrett?
Yes, we
Why
are.
not? Because I live across the street
Yeah,
from the oldest deeded Methodist church in America. I
yeah.
live at the corner of Liberty, Cornwall.
Oh, okay.
Corner,
Mhm.
so were they married in that church?
So it was a lay minister. So remember, this is I know. This is a beginner's course. So what I'm basically saying is that, Methodism in this county can be pretty difficult to find the church records and drill that down. So that's why I didn't put it in here, because it can be pretty difficult. I personally, because I'm a type B researcher, I stopped there. It's again, something I can pick back up, and maybe that's something we'll go on a journey together and see what happens. That'll be fun. But and again, so for this job, I've been taking genealogical courses, and with the International Institute of Genealogy, they have an online course that talks about different record sets. And with church records, it can be pretty difficult to track that down, and they have a whole full 3-week course on just marriage records. So it can be difficult. That's why I didn't include it, and that's why I haven't done it yet, because I just haven't gotten there. But yes, to be determined. But yeah, that's where we're stopping, because we're getting to the closest part. But yeah, like you said, we're never done. I haven't really gotten to the reasonably exhaustive search yet with my marriage records. So the next step would be the church records.
I just know it's very sacred ground.
Yes, yeah, it is. All right, let's organize. We got all this documentation. Where do we put it? How do we organize it? Again, I'm not very organized, so this can be a little difficult for me. So don't feel bad if you can't do the standard. You're not a professional. It's just here to help you get your ducks in a row, so to speak, okay? So basically, what you want to do is make sure you figure out an organizational method that works best for you. You can do it where you print out everything and put it in file folders. You can see here on the left, we have a file cabinet full of information with the surnames. You can put it on your computer desktop. That's what I do, is again, and when you're starting out, you don't need to be too detailed or too nitpicky. If you just make a surname folder and throw all that information into a surname folder, that is okay. But at least you know that that family is sticking with that. And that's also where family group charts, that the page that I showed at the beginning, where you have the information about the family in with that folder, then you can be like, yes, this record goes with this. And you have your research logs. Oh yeah, this record goes with this. And it kind of keeps it maintained. If you want to get a little bit more detailed, what you can do is make a folder for each marriage. So, and then always keep the surname of the maiden name of the wife, right? You keep that there on your file folder, and then you create a separate file for that maiden name to get her life before that marriage. Okay, so you have that separately. But their life together after the marriage and the children after the marriage, or depending. You have all that information there in that file folder contained. And then once the children get married, that's when you make a new folder for them. Okay, so you can color code it, you can do what you need to. It's really make it your own and do it what's best for you. Okay, any questions about organization? Okay. All right, so the example I used is cream of the crop, right? It is, we've found information prior to the Civil War. And I chose them because there was records availability to show this. But that doesn't mean that's what you're going to find with your research. Okay, so just always be aware that sometimes it's going to be a little bit difficult or challenging. And that's okay, that's part of the chase. So we do, if you want to take it a step further, Thomas Balch Library does have skill building courses. We do have a course on African-American history, so it gives you a little bit more information about record sets prior to the Civil War. It's not impossible, but there's just different techniques that you can do. You also have using maps in your historical research, diving more into court records, Next month, we're doing one on oral history. So this YouTube channel really is helpful. And so that's why we record all of our classes. So you can come back and look at it. But again, this is European-centric research that I just shared with you. The skills can go broadly. It's the same skill sets that you need. You can apply it in different ways. But if you need help with your genealogy, like Tanny over here, she has Chinese ancestry, so you can look at Facebook groups. There's always a community there for you to help you get started with your specific research. Like I have on my mother's side, I have an great-grandmother that came from Denmark. So immigration help, if you need immigration help. So I, in the handout, put a link to Facebook groups that you can drill down to your specific need if you need it, okay? So speaking of community, we do have some in-person events at Thomas Balch Library that are coming up. So if you are having a hard time reading historic cursive, we're doing a clinic next week in the evening, next Thursday, that you can use. And then in August, we will be starting up a genealogy club, which is basically an interest meeting to see if there's volunteers out there that want to create a community here in Loudoun. It does not have to be Loudoun-centric. It's people that are beginners like you, who are a little bit older in the game, who want to come together and share ideas and ask questions and really help you with that. So we really do encourage you to come out in August to inform that club, and so we can get that rolling on. All right, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much. You're welcome. All right, any questions we have from the virtual audience?
At the moment, there isn't.
Okay, that's okay.
But if you all have any questions, feel free to email us.
Yes, yeah, if you have any follow-up, you're welcome to use, I have the Balch Lib email here. So like I was saying in the class, that's the email that you can use to be like, hey, can you help me with this? I have a question for you. So yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much. You were a great audience, so I really appreciate it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much. So I just want to say, hi, my name is Chantal. I actually work for the Sterling Library, so we don't have, we have access to some of the records just through Thomas Balch, but we actually have a preservation station. So if you're looking to also kind of relate it to genealogy, to digitize like your photos, cassettes, if you have like oral history, that's on cassettes, so we can digitize that, vinyl as well. But we have photo scanners, they can do negative, they can do slides. So if you're interested, please come by with Sterling Library. We do have flyers if you would like.
That's
To
awesome.
have one, but in conjunction with, you collecting all of those memories, this is the way to save them and also share them if you digitize that information or those photos.
And I would love to connect with you because we could totally promote that on our social media as well.
Absolutely.
Because I know we have people that are really interested. So thank you for coming.
Sure, thank you.
Yes. The makerspace. Yeah.
So there is a question. Can you use this information to research the return of military dog tags?
Oh, use this information to research the return of military dog tags. Yes, the similar style of how you start your research can always be helpful for any type of research. Like I have mentioned several times, I do have a degree in history, and sometimes I wish that I knew about genealogical research while I was getting that degree, because it really gets you to drill down to the information that you need to find. So for dog tags, it's basically you just need to find all of the context of what you're looking for. So where were the dog tags lost? What repositories or groups might you need to contact for that information? And then also for the person that you're looking at, you really need to look at their military records if they're available to get as much information about that person. So then you can go and talk to whoever's relevant in your research and being like, hey, I would love to retrieve these dog tags. If you have them, here's all the personal information about this person or the military record. So yes, even though it's genealogy, this type of research style can be applied to across a wide range of subjects or interests. Yeah. Thanks for the question. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Ask you a personal question. You don't have to answer it. When did you graduate from Valley?
2010.